What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure and like and subscribe to the channel as you tune in and check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on Rob Parker again, man. This time, Rob Parker is hating on Matthew Stafford, right? He don't think that Matthew Stafford should have won that MVP award, right? Now, I thought that Matthew Stafford had a really good year, and I'm not, in my opinion, I'm not really mad at Matthew Stafford for winning. Uh, it could have went either way. It could have went Drake May, or it could have went Matthew Stafford. But Rob Parker he got a habit of hating on these quarterbacks. He hated on he hated on Sam Darnold all year long. And look at what Sam Darnold, look at Sam Darnold. Had a nice playoff run and wound up winning the Super Bowl, right? And now, so he's hating on Matthew Stafford too. It just seems like if Rob Parker picks you, then that's almost like putting a jinx on you, man, because his predictions a lot of times and his opinions are, kind of off base, in my opinion. So now, on this episode right here of Odd Couple, they're talking about how they think that Matthew Stafford should not have gotten that MVP award, right? So I'm gonna play the audio, then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna give my my take on that.
Rob G, last night I threw up in my mouth, and it wasn't from the pasta that I ate. It was from the idea that Rob G, Matthew Stafford, won the MVP.
Guys, well, yes, if you missed it last night, Matthew Stafford is the NFL MVP. We all kind of expected it. He won by one vote over Drake May, who we're playing on Sunday.
Nobody expected that. Would you give me that?
One vote?
That it was that close?
Yeah, and there's good reason why. It's because we mentioned it last year with the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson situation. When it comes to All-Pro, whoever wins All-Pro historically wins the MVP. Mm-hmm. Matthew Stafford ran away with first-team All-Pro. However, much like last year, a lot of voters flipped their All-Pro vote from Matthew Stafford to Drake May, which led to the closest MVP vote since 2003. And Rob, something tells me you're not happy about it.
We know you wasn't happy about it.
The voters, they got it wrong. They got Justin Herbert. How does he, because he's 6 foot tall, 6'4", and looks like a quarterback, you got to vote? Like, that was the worst vote.
Yeah, I don't know what.
But like I said, my opinion, I'm not really mad. Like I said, Drake May did have an outstanding season too. Drake May carried his team further. They made it to the Super Bowl, although they didn't win. They didn't really complete it. But maybe the voters got it right because, Drake May in the Super Bowl really didn't look all that good. And Rich, let me just say, I don't even think it was Drake May's fault. I just think that they didn't have that left side of that offensive line, man, just could not block the Seahawks. So that's not on Drake May. But other than that, and I think Drake May in the Super Bowl did make a few plays. When he had the opportunity to throw, and he took off, and scrambled and ran, got some yards that way. But like I said, I'm not mad at Matthew Stafford, or the fact that Matthew Stafford won it. But let me get back to some more. I think a lot of fans are upset though, and I'm going to let some of the fans from the Odd Couple. I'm gonna let that play too, so y'all can hear what some of those fans had to say.
Where that came from.
Josh Allen got 2 votes, questionable as well, especially the way they fell off at the end. Mm-hmm. Very questionable. At one point, he was kind of in the mix.
Well, you're going to be all, you're in the mix, you're the reigning MVP.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But still, it was kind of weird. And the idea that it was so close, to me, speaks volumes. Because his numbers, Stafford's numbers, were way better than Drake May. But there apparently were voters out there who just could not come to terms with voting a guy named Stafford as MVP.
Let me check it.
That's why he didn't get an overwhelming number of votes for MVP, because his nickname is Stafford. Because everybody knows he's been padding stats since he was in Detroit. He padded stats the last game of the year against the Cardinals after he had that terrible game against Atlanta, and he had that.
Now, the thing about when he was in Detroit, I thought he was a good quarterback in Detroit also. It's just that they didn't always have the talent around him so Detroit can, could do better as a team. But so that's to me, it was a good sign that you had a quarterback who still was a good quarterback. It's just that they didn't have that, they didn't just have the right team around them. Sometimes the defense wasn't all that good. And I didn't think they had enough talent around them. Sometimes Detroit. It's the same situation almost as like what Dan Marino was in Miami, right? Everybody knew that Dan Marino was like one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but the rest of the team wasn't enough to, he couldn't pull it up enough to get everybody over the hump. They was always competitive. So I wouldn't call him stat pad neither. I mean, he just was, you could stop him from stat padding. That's the defense job, just to stop the quarterback. So I don't think he's stat padding.
That terrible fourth quarter against Seattle when they blew that 16-point fourth quarter lead, the voters got it wrong. I needed 3 other voters to come and make this all right. And I know I've had some year, but when I heard the numbers, I was disappointed, but I felt a lot better because a lot of people went the other way.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you felt a lot better, but I think, and it wasn't a blowout though. Matthew Stafford, you mentioned some of the things that happened, and it didn't happen in the postseason where they've already cast their vote. The stuff that would make people maybe go, oh, it's tight. Like let's say week, 13-ish. 14, like, it's close. I got Stafford right now. Look like going to run away with the West, maybe run away with the NFC.
They were the number 1 seed.
Right. The tougher
for most of the year.
Tougher conference. And then the last few games, they do lose to Seattle. They lose a stinker to Atlanta. And they fight. He has to play against the Cardinals. So I do think some people are like, it's that close. I'm going to give it to Drake May. Or some people may have said it's that close, but maybe I really looked at Drake May's schedule. And so both played spectacularly, but I think they got it right ultimately for me because I'm looking at a guy that was in we just had Christian McCaffrey here. His division was incredibly tough as is. In fact, one of the representatives from his division at the Super Bowl is from his division. So we got to play them twice. You got to play the 49ers.
But that doesn't seem, I hear that.
But hold on, and I go through the rest of that conference and their schedule. So they played an incredibly difficult schedule, and then Matthew Stafford still goes crazy with the numbers. And his numbers were ballooned compared to anyone else. So I think, again, this was no blowout. This wasn't a year where, there's just no rivals, maybe a Patrick Mahomes year from a few years ago where you're like, all right, what are we going to do? Or Lamar Jackson.
See, when you put it like that, he had to play the 49ers, had a really good defense. The Seahawks had a really good defense. So that conference or that division that he's in is not an easy division, right? And he still put up really, really good numbers. So, and as opposed to Drake May, people was talking about the schedule that he had to face. He had some decent numbers too. Wasn't like Matt Stafford numbers. But, I don't know. I don't have a problem with Matthew Stafford being the MVP. So
year, a couple years back. This is just to me where if I were a voter, I would have edged him out in his favor looking at those things.
I don't think so. Because I saw a lot of tweets from football writers who were shocked at how close it was. There were some who thought, wow, with his numbers, that many people didn't vote for him.
But it's what you were saying before we got here. It was the close of the season. And you brought up who they played. Was it the Cardinals? Yeah, last week.
When he put those added, what do you have, 4 touchdowns, Rob G, last week or whatever that got him to the over the.
So imagine it's the reverse. He throws 2, and he throws 2 interceptions. 2, you know what I mean? Where it's like, and this is how you finish it? Well, that might have been the 2 or 3 votes. So he and maybe that also was what made him win, was going out there and playing, because maybe if people would have saw the last lost to the Falcons, would have voted, would not have voted well for him. So
I need to start getting a vote. I know I'm in the baseball.
How many Hall of Fame or MVPs and Hall of Fame votes you want?
I need one for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because had I been a voter.
No. I tell you why they're not going to give it to you.
I wouldn't have guessed.
No, because you wouldn't have gone into this and saying, let me see, let me look at this, let me look at that. You'd have gone in there with, dang it, I've been calling Stat Pat for 15, 20 years. I got to keep calling him that, and no way I can vote him the MVP. So, no, they ain't giving you a vote. You would have had to go in there. There's no way you could have gone. You know who's an MVP, Rob G? Matthew You would have stuttered.
No,
Stafford.
but I still feel vindicated that despite the numbers, it wasn't a runaway. That everybody didn't go.
Of course, you know, despite it wasn't a runaway, it was close. Like you said, it was one decided by one vote. That don't mean that he vindicated. I think it just was a close call, you know, because Drake May had a really good season. Matthew Stafford had you know, he put up a lot of good numbers against some tough competition, right? And so it's close. I mean, it could have went either way.
Oh, Stafford is so much greater, and Drake May's a second-year quarterback. To have his numbers, and his numbers, what did he have? 31 touchdowns? What was his number?
31 touchdowns, 4,300 passing yards. I think another helping factor
passing yards were good, right?
421 rushing yards is a lot of yards.
But I'm still saying it didn't
50,
seem.
Sorry, 450 and 4 touchdowns. So I think that also adds to it. I mean, that's what all these people, the analysts are saying. He's got to be mobile. He's got to use his legs in order to have a chance to win this Super Bowl. So that's what makes Drake May, and that's what makes him.
And he didn't. Drake May, he ran a couple times in the Super Bowl, but it's just that you know, that left side of his offensive line, man. The guy, what was his name? Campbell, I think his name was. He just couldn't block anybody, and so that's what happened with Drake May. And I don't even really blame this guy Campbell, you know, the offensive lineman. Everybody knew that he was playing out of position, and you know, either you're gonna throw some screens over top of you know, if the guy's rushing, you let him get through, or you know, don't let him get through, but you know he's getting through fast, and throw some screens over top of him, behind him, and you got guys going the other way. I didn't see them doing that or trying to put any plays in there that was going to negate that rush that they was getting, you know. So I don't know. They got a lot of pressure on him from that left side. Even got a sack, at least one sack from the left side. So that wasn't Drake May fault. It wasn't Campbell. I thought it was coaching. You know, Campbell wasn't even supposed to be out there as an offensive lineman on that side anyway. So he was playing out of position. But that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm going to check you all out in the next video. Peace.